Hey everyone, let me know if you can hear me. Awesome. Good to see everyone. Good to see you, Hannah, Tracy, the Bruce is loose. We got Susan, Stuart Braithwaite, Kiora. Good to see you, Okapest. Bernie Taylor, glad you could make it. Kevin, Rick, Rolf, Susan. We've got Jan, we've got Ron, we've got John, Ron and John, that rhymes. Rolf, Misty, Gary, good to see you, Gary. John Sullivan, Stuart, good to see you, Stuart Greenberg, as well as Stuart Braithwaite from Pukekohe. And Patrice from PA, good to see you. We're going to be kicking off in 4 minutes and 22 seconds. As soon as this thing hits the top of the hour, we are going to go live. So how many of you guys got this message from the newsletter? And how many of you just stumbled across it? Let us know. Good to see you, Robin. Four minutes. All right, I'm going to start sending out the messages to social media. If any of you guys are on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, just copy that link and share it out with your friends. Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse. What's the other one? Vero? Was that the one that was big for a second? What else is there? Snapchat? Or as one of my clients like to call it, Instaface. So just send out your messages on Instaface. 3 minutes and 19 seconds. We're kicking off. Stick your head out the window, yell out the URL, get your neighbors on. Actually, don't do that. I'm just kidding. Two minutes, 43 seconds. And by the way, guys, while we're waiting, if you guys have not joined our Facebook group, I just posted the link in there. And I will, right now, I see the 17 requests. I'll approve you. And there we go. All right, why don't I do something sneaky? I'm going to just appear for a second. And there's the chat up there. So for those of you who are watching the replay, we go live in 2 minutes. And of course, those of you who are watching live, we go live in 2 minutes. So you see that chat on the screen there? If you don't see that at the side, it means you're probably not watching this live. You're watching the replay. And if that's the case, drop your comments underneath and I'll read them and I will respond. So we've got 1 minute and 40 seconds before we go live. And it's going to be a good one this week. We're going to be talking about tips for editing in Lightroom. Good to see you, Russ. Good to see you, Dieter, Betty, Mr. Albert. Klaus, good to see you again. And I'm going to disappear off the screen again. Because we've got 1 minute. And then we're going to get ready for the countdown. Your mate down in Whangarei says it's very wet. Oh, my sister is actually in Whangarei right now, so I guess she's wet too. So, it gets cold there too in winter. People don't realize that far up north it can get cold, but it does. Let's go for a new episode of LFL. We're pretty close there. 30 seconds out. Oh, now it's 30 seconds. Then we go all down at Marina in Whangarei. Nice. All right, so here we go. Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. And hello, everybody. Looks like I'm way off the screen there. Let me just fix that for you. I love this. It's kind of like bloopers week. It's like, okay, what blooper am we going to get this week? Okay, let me just change the size of that. That's a very, very interesting one. There we go. Sometimes I'm way too big, so I'm just going to fix this. Here we go. I think we should have a sweepstake. Like, what blooper is Colin going to do this week? There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so everybody, welcome to Live from Lockdown. This is episode number 66. So we've been doing this for 66 weeks, which is more than a year, less than 2 years. But it's been a blast. We've been coming together every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, with the exception of, holidays like Christmas and stuff. So it's so good to see you. I see there's a lot of regulars here. Good to see all of you guys once again. And if you're new here, just say hello in the chat. Let everybody know who you are. It's very friendly group. You'll be welcomed and everyone will be nice to you. Now, Bruce is also in the house. You might see Bruce Bicknell there. And he is our moderator. So he has a number of jobs. One of them is collecting drink orders. So get those drink orders in right now so that you can enjoy your tasty beverage before the PhotoshopCAFE airplane lands in Las Vegas in about an hour. All right, so anyway, so this week, guys, we're going to be doing Photoshop tips for editing. Sorry, I said Photoshop, I mean Lightroom. And I'm going to be working inside of a Lightroom Classic. So this should be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to switch to my screen right now. And for those of you, and we know who you are, that don't like Lightroom, that's okay. Everything we're doing can also be done inside of Camera Raw. And you can just open your images from Bridge into Camera Raw. And that will work very much the same as what we're doing in Lightroom, because we're focusing on the editing module with what we're doing mostly today. All right, so we've got 7 things that maybe we're going to do. I don't know if we have time to get through them all, but we'll do our best. And I think one of the ones we just want to kick off of right now is let's talk about range masking. So range masking gives us the ability to automatically mask out different things. I'm just going to go straight onto the desktop here so my face is not covering up anything. Bruce just said he drinks all the drinks, so that's why they don't show up, guys. Get your orders in. The more orders you get in, the funnier Bruce will become. All right, so what you want to do is we're going to click on the develop module here. And so here we are in the develop module. Now this range mask is going to automatically let us roll off or roll on not like a deodorant, but a adjustment. And it's going to work with several of these tools. It works with the gradient tool, it works with the brush tool, and it also works with the radial adjustment. So any localized adjustment. So just to show you how it works, why don't we grab the gradient tool here, and we're just going to drag this down. And by the way, here's a tip. If you want to get it perfectly horizontal and not all wiggly like this, hold down the Shift key. And we're just going to apply a gradient. Great. I'm just going to double click on the word effect. That's going to reset it so you don't see anything change. Why don't we do something really different with this? Why don't we do a color blend? Just, I don't know, just for fun, because we can. Let's find a color that's going to look interesting, because I never seem to do much of that when I'm showing stuff here. So yeah, let's do this purpley color. It's kind of fun. And why don't we take the exposure down a little bit, give it a little punch. All right. So this is looking kind of interesting. Maybe it's simulating some kind of a filter or something that we have on our camera. But notice that not just the sky, but everything is changing, including our motorcyclist. Now, what we want to do is remove it from this guy. Now, there is a brush. You can choose the brush and you can start to paint things out. Or you could just manually paint with a huge brush here using Auto Mask. Or we can roll down and let's look at the Range Mask. So under Range Mask, we have some different options here. If we click, you're going to see that we have color, luminance, and depth. Now, depth is grayed out. And the reason for that is we don't have a depth map on this photo. Now, had you been using something like, the latest iPhone or one of the newer iPhones or Pixels or one of the phones that support portrait mode, it will actually build a depth map and that will appear when you bring it in here. Now, you have to have an HEIF image, which the iPhone shoots, and that would show the depth map. Now, we can also create depth maps in photos now inside of Photoshop. Check out one of the ones I did with the AI editing. With the depth of field, you can actually output that depth map. And yes, it would work here inside of Lightroom or Camera Raw. All right, so we're obviously not using that. We're going to use color. And with color, we're going to grab the eyedropper tool and we're going to choose a color that we want to keep. So let's click. Notice as I click on what used to be the blue behind us, which is still blue as far as Lightroom's concerned, it selects that color and notice immediately it rolls it away from our motorcyclist. So if we go here, we can see, hey, we can change the amount, and what that does is it just determines, hey, where are we on the edge? So as I'm increasing that amount, notice it's allowing us to capture our purple up here, but we're not losing the adjustment we made here on our motorcyclist. Now, I shot this down San Diego way, and it was kind of fun shooting these motocross riders. But let me just go ahead and show you what we can do. So now that we've selected this, we can adjust all kinds of things, and notice these are going to adjust independently to our motorcyclist. Now notice there might be some colors that get picked up, such as that part of the mask, and that's because these are the same colors. So this is based on color. So if you want to protect that area, choose the brush, and actually, let me go back to the gradient. We are going to use the brush, but not that brush. Don't choose the brush there. Choose the brush where it says Mask Brush. There we go. And let me just make that smaller by hitting the left bracket key. And by the way, Shift bracket will, we can adjust, see that the bracket will change exposure, or we can change the size of that. Let's change the size of that a little bit smaller. Nice. All right, so now we've got that brush. I'm going to hold down the Alt or the Option key. And by the way, notice you can also change the settings down here. If you want to make a hard edge, just turn that feather down. And I'm going to hold the Alt or the Option, and let's make the size smaller. See how we can change it there? We can do the bracket key or do it there. Now, if we paint inside these areas, oh, look at that. So those areas that accidentally got picked up because they were the same color, we can isolate those now, and those are not going to change anymore. Let's go to the color, and I'll show you. Notice as we change the color, the rest of the sky is changing now, but not our motocross rider. Let's go a different color just for fun so you can see how it works. Now, if we click on the gradient, this will close this, and now we can adjust the exposure, and this will affect the whole image, including that adjustment. So if we want to make that just pop a little bit more, let's hit those shadows a little bit. Nice. Now if we want to go in and affect that background, choose the gradient, tap the gradient. Maybe we don't want to do the color. Let's just go, boom, saturation all the way down, and that will not affect anything anymore. And maybe we want to do exposure, so we want to have it a little bit darker. Or we could do it brighter. So it doesn't matter how we do it, we're able to protect our rider now. So this is like using a layer mask inside of Lightroom. And of course, we don't have layers, but we do have some great tools here. So this range mask is great, and this works the same, by the way, inside of Camera Raw as it does in Lightroom. And if you guys have just joined us, we've got lots of little tips we're going to be doing here, so you haven't missed anything. And also the replay will be live as soon as we're finished, so you guys will get that. Now, if you guys are getting any value out of this, do me a favor, hit that like button, smash it, and smash it into dust. That will be great. So how are we doing for likes right now? Only 48 likes. All right, guys, help me out here, and I'm going to show you some more things. Now, that's the thumbs up button for those of you who don't know that. All right, let's go and have a look. And we're going to look at something else we can do with the range masking. So this is something I shot earlier on this year in Yosemite. Yay. Yay, Yosemite. All right, what we're going to do is I'm going to apply a gradient in the sky. So once again, we're going to go to the develop module. And we're going to drag this gradient down. Let's really make this work nicely. So dehaze, by the way, really makes clouds just pop. In case you didn't know, now you do. Let's take the exposure down just a little bit. And sometimes you don't even have to get this dramatic sky if you've got the clouds. You can literally just do that, sometimes just using the dehaze. But I'm going to take the exposure down because I really want to affect it more so I can show you how this works. All right, so now we're going into the mountains. All right, let's have a look here and see what we can do. I want to paint something in here now. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go up. Let me just drag that up because I think we're going to get a better effect by just painting. So I'm going to grab this brush, and with this brush, I'm going to make this more red. So why don't we just paint with the brush here, and I'm just painting. You're not going to see much until I reset this. Let's change that color temperature. And that exposure. All right, there we go. This will work. You guys will be able to see what's going on. All right, so you can do a pretty good job of just kind of painting like I am here. And you could actually pretty well clean this up, by the way, just using the auto mask. So if I hit the Alt or the Option key, I could probably go in here and clean it up pretty nicely. See that? But let's just make it rough so I can show you how this filter works. So what we want to do is use a different range mask. So under range mask, this time we're going to use Luminance. Luminance is interesting because if I show the Luminance mask, you can see, oh, these are the areas. There's our mask that's selected. So now if you want to roll it off the shadows, you go this way. If you want to roll it off the highlights, you go the other way. And notice as I do that, it disappears off there. Notice that we see these little things, but as we adjust the smoothness, you can blend this in more or less. And let me show you with the Luminance mask off. So here we are. See how it's affecting everywhere? You can start to pull it down and just start to target the areas you're working on. Now, this is going to work differently with different parts of the image. Let me show you a different part. Let's work on this area here, which is a little bit darker. All right, so I'm going to grab this brush. And by the way, if you want to get rid of the other brush stroke, choose the brush, select the pen, hit delete. All right, so maybe we just want to lighten this area. So let me just double click on effect. Let's increase the exposure, and now I'm just going to paint. Now this is obviously way too much. Let me grab my Wacom pen here. It's just easier to paint. And I'm just going to paint up here. And we want to get those edges. Now, no one's going to paint that badly, but this will just help us demonstrate this, how this mask works. So range mask, Luminance. Now watch what happens. If we roll it off the shadows, notice it'll go away from our area and only affect behind it. So that means it's not affecting the shadows. If you want to roll it off the highlights, we can go this way. So see that? Look at this. So we could literally take it there. And now I could go and paint and only affect the other area. Now obviously this is a little too bright, but notice how it's picking up the edge on that cliff as well and everything, because now we've restricted this to those areas. See, if I take this away, it's just everywhere, but if we go down here, we can determine where we want to restrict this by using that mask. And I can go here at the top. Notice I had a little too much, and I was able to just pull it off those highlight areas. So now you can kind of put it in there, and you can do, change the saturation. Let me just show you, just so you can see we're targeting that area now. See that? So using these masks is an incredible way to go in and just target different parts of a photograph that we can make adjustments independently. So figured that would be just useful for you guys to see. Now, what would I do with this? Something maybe a little bit more practical. Maybe I'm going to make it more blue. So it's a little bit more blue and ominous. Maybe punch the contrast a little bit more. Increase the exposure just a touch. Maybe I'd do something like that just to create that kind of drama. All right, let us move on. That's the range masks. So those are the two, and once again, if you're using the phone, you have access to the other one. All right, so why don't we jump into something here, dodging and burning. This is something really interesting. See this image here? We've dodged and burned it. That's the original image. But first of all, I'm just going to quickly show you guys how this works, because a lot of people are not aware of the amount of power that we have inside the brushes inside of Lightroom or Camera Raw. And what makes them powerful is the fact that they're completely non-destructive and they have some great functionality. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to choose the brush. And so this would be an adjustment brush. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the exposure all the way down. Make it very, very dark. And let me increase that feather so we get a soft. And this is basically, we're going to paint with this, and we're going to paint almost with a black because I've got that all the way down, and I want to show you how this works. So we've got auto mask turned on, which is great. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attempt to paint shadow in here. Notice with the auto mask on, I can paint that shadow. Now I went over a little bit. Let's go to the other side here, and I'm going to add another brush stroke. And if we go with the other brush stroke, let's just grab the brush again. This time we're going to go all the way up, and we're going to get into these settings in a second. I can paint with the highlight. Now this is very, very abrupt, so it's not going to produce a very realistic result as far as shadiness, right? So let's look at the settings and see what we can do. So let me just delete these and we'll do something a little bit more reasonable. All right, so once again, I've got this set extremely extreme, which is fine because this will show you guys how it works. But let's look under here. Size is self-explanatory. Feather, I think, is also self-explanatory. There's a soft feather, no feather. Basically just determines how hard the brush is. So if we're going to be doing some nice shading, such as we do in dodging burning, normally you're going to have that feather up pretty high because you want it nice. Now this is where people get confused. I'm going to turn off auto mask for a second, is flow and density. So with flow and density turned on, I'm just painting with black. If I change the flow, it'll still eventually get to black. Now I haven't lifted my hand, I'm just going here, but what it's doing is it's going to get there much, much slower so we can start to blend this in. Now I'm not lifting my hand at all. I mean, I can, but what it's going to do is eventually it's going to get to black because we've got that set to black. If I turn the flow up, it's going to get there a lot faster. So flow determines how fast do we get to our target value. Now notice I said target value and I didn't say black. And that's because the density is going to determine our target value. So flow is how fast you get there. Density is how far you're going to go. So let's drop this to 50%. And so with the flow all the way up, it's going to get there instantly, and instantly is 50%. So notice now we get a 50% gray. Now, let me just pop myself on the screen so you can see. So I'm using a Wacom pen. If I take my hand off, now if you were working inside of Photoshop and you paint again with 50, it's going to give you 100. But here it's not. See that? So that's why I said not the value, I said the target value. Because this is what makes this unique. is I can change the density. It's not going to change what's on the screen, but when I paint again, it's going to change it. So notice this was black. So I'm going to paint 50% on top of it, and it's just going to stay black, right? Wrong. Now it's going to 50%. So that is the target value. So that means if I want to get there a little slower, I can drop the flow down, and now I can start to blend. Look. And we can get nice, smooth edges. So the density is how far do you want to go, or what do you want to go to? The flow is how fast you get there. So this is very, very useful information. So let me reset this. And now I'm going to give you guys an additional tip. I'm going to do a shadow and I'm going to do a highlight. So why don't we start with the shadow? Now here's something interesting. I'm going to turn exposure all the way down just so we can see. Now, I'm not going to paint on here because the pins get in the way. How many times have you found the pins are in the way? So I'm just going to tap. Nothing's happened because I haven't painted, but what I've done is I've set that point. And I'm choosing the upper left for the shadow point. That's just where the point is. Now we're going to begin painting. Now I'm going to use the upper left for the shadow point so the point doesn't get in the way. Now I want to add some shadow. So I'm going to set my target density to maybe around about 70. We've got 69 there. Davey504 will be happy. Any of you watch him, you know what I mean. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that flow to about 10. And we're going to turn the auto mask on, which detects the edges. It's going to struggle in some of the areas where they meet because those edges are going to be the same, but in some of the other areas it's going to be fine. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to begin to paint with some shadow. This is just like painting if you were painting in, with paints or dodging and burning in Photoshop. Now, a lot of people were not aware that you have the ability to do this inside of Lightroom or Camera Raw. And notice because I've got that flow, I'm able to build this up. And you can do it for mouse. I'm using a Wacom, so it's going to look better. But now I'm starting to build up that shadow. I'm not going right to the edge because you get reflection on there. If anyone's steady dark, you know what I mean. But see, now we're starting to add some depth to this. Now this is just a flat disk that we're adding depth. This is important for you to learn and see, because if you understand this, this will help you understand what we're going to do to our photos. All right, now I'm going to do the highlight area. So instead of painting again and changing it, we're going to choose new. And this is going to give me a new brush. Notice that that one's still there. Now I'm just going to tap once, and we've added a highlight point. Once again, this is the same in Camera Raw. So now we've added a highlight point, and I'm going to change the exposure all the way up, and now I'm going to start to paint on the top. Now we're painting with a highlight. Notice now we're starting to get some depth. This is not looking flat anymore, is it? Now it's starting to look three-dimensional because the light source is coming from the top left. Where the light hits it, it's brighter. And now we've added depth, so now it looks like an egg and not a flat area. And let me just show you. If we go up under these points, we can select, there's our highlight. We can change this. Notice if I just take the exposure to nothing. Let's tap up here. Let's take our shadows to nothing, and look at that. It's flat. Make those shadows dark. Go up here, make the highlights bright. So what makes this nice is the fact that this is non-destructive and we can dial in the amount we want. And now that we've set this, what it's doing is it's actually creating a mask. Let me click and you can see where it's red. That's the mask overlay that we created. If I tap on the black one, that actually is tap on that one. There's the shadow. There's the highlight. So let me turn the mask overlay off. And what makes this special is that we can change anything. Let's make it a little bit brighter. Put a little warm color in there. So now we've got the sun is starting to hit that. I mean, you could go very extreme if you wanted. But same thing with the shadow. Let's grab the shadow, put a little blue into it, cool it down a little bit. And see how we can start to do this. This gives us just a lot of ability to just do things with our shading that we normally couldn't. I can have Taco Bell tonight. Awesome. Thanks for that, Bruce. I'm really excited. Uh, all right, guys. So that's essentially how we're able to add depth to a flat object using dodging and burning inside of Camera Raw or Lightroom. All right, we got 100. All right, keep going, guys, with the likes. We'd like to see, let's see if we can get to 200 likes. All right, so let's take what we just learned here and apply it to photograph. So here's a photo that I shot at Laguna Beach. And I'm just going to do some basic adjustment. Let's just open up the exposure a little bit. Cover the highlights so we can get some color in the sky there. And that's good. So we're just going for some just basic flat image. And now we want to add depth to this, doing exactly what we just did. So let's have a look here. And welcome to Silver Horse, who's new. Good to see you. What we're doing right now, for those of you who have just joined me, let me just reset the stream here quickly. For those of you who have just joined us, we're doing some essential editing tips inside of Lightroom, and we're doing right now dodging and burning to add three-dimensional depth. I just showed how to add the depth. Now we're going to apply it to a photograph, and we've got lots of shorter segments. You haven't missed anything, and also the replay will be live immediately after this. And if you're getting any value out of this, do me a favor, hit the like button. That's the thumbs up. It helps us with the algorithm on YouTube. And by the way, guys, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and you will not miss any streams or videos. So every Tuesday I do a tutorial, every Thursday live stream. All right, guys, let's grab our brush tool. Now remember that little trick I did? Tap. That's adding a shadow point. Now the reason I do this, once again, if you start painting and you start getting points all over your image, you accidentally move them. And let me just show you what happens before we do our photo if you accidentally move one of these. It can be annoying. Watch this. You tap on here, and I've selected one of these, and if I move it, oh, the whole adjustment gets moved. Okay, so that's why you don't want to bump those. So if you're new, you don't even know what problem I just solved. I actually just solved the problem you didn't even know you had yet. All right, so that's why we put this in the left. All right, so we're going to start with our shadows. So take the exposure all the way down, and by the way, you can adjust any of these after the fact. And we're going to set our feather to 100, so it's going to be nice and soft, and our flow to 10, so it's going to build up slowly, and our density is going to be around about 69, so it's not going to go all the way to black. I'm hitting the left bracket key, and it changes the size of the brush. So now I'm just going to start to paint in some shadow. All right, watch this. This is going to add depth, and also it's going to change the image. It's going to give us, it's going to simplify the image, make it more pleasing to the eye, and also it's going to give us a little painterly effect. So when we paint with the shadows, you're thinking about where are the areas that you want to recess. So these are concave or going away from us. The light is coming from this area. You can tell because see the shadow there. So the light is coming from the right to the left. So that means everything facing the light will be brighter. Everything going away, every surface. So break these, instead of looking at it as a photo, look at this, just this object. Oh, this area is going to be in shadow. This area is going to be in shadow because it's not going to be receiving that light. It's away from the light. All right, and I'm just going to do this. And just to let you guys be aware too, if you guys are interested in learning Lightroom, one of my flagship titles that I've been doing as far as a premium training at PhotoshopCAFE is the Lightroom for digital photographers. I have the latest version of that is out. It's 14 hours of training, everything you need to know about Lightroom. I'm not going to put it up on the screen. We don't have a special or a promo code or anything because I'm not really trying to promote it or sell anything, but just let you guys know that. It's at PhotoshopCAFE.com. And when you go there, just click on Premium Courses, and you will learn lots and lots about Lightroom. A lot of stuff you won't learn anywhere else. And I believe my course is the most comprehensive one out there. But it also comes from real world, not just a classroom environment. Anyway, so I'm putting the shadow in here. And if we look at the shadow, let's see what happened here. If I take the exposure here and take it down, see what we're doing? We're adding that shadow and it's starting to add depth to this cliff. Of course, we can do the same thing any parts of the photo, but let's just focus on here. All right, let's do the highlights. So what we're going to do is choose new, and this is going to enable me to drop another pin. I'm just going to tap to drop that pin. Once again, I put the pins out of the way because if you move them, see how it messes up your adjustment? Don't want that. So tap here, highlights, take the exposure all the way up. And this is fun. I love painting with light, which is what we're doing now. So look at this. We get a little bit of light starts to hit the front. This brings in the sunlight and just really makes things look nice. Now, once again, I'm painting with a low value. That's why it's building up very slowly. Let me just exaggerate it a little bit. So we're going to go from a 10 to a 15 to 16% flow. Now, this is probably faster than I want, but it's going to enable you to see what I'm doing a little easier. So a lot of the time when I'm doing this, I like to keep the flow very, very low and then just slowly build this up. So once again, I'm exaggerating this a little bit just for the sake of time and also so you guys can see better. Yeah, see, it's going a little too fast for my liking. But once again, I think you understand if I was doing this for myself, I'd be doing it lower and slower. And by the way, if you're using the iPad version, this also works, and pen pressure is supported on the Apple Pencil, so that works really nicely. So that means you can press harder to increase that flow. All right, so a little bit of light maybe hitting here just to kind of give you guys an idea. All right, so if we look at the before and after, obviously I did lighten and darken that. So let's just go here. Here's the highlight area, before, after. And let's warm it up a little bit. Just hit a little bit on the color temperature there. And let's do the same thing on the shadow. Let's give it a little blue, cooler shadow. And that's how we dodge and burn to add depth and add dimension here using the adjustment brushes inside of Lightroom. All right, so we're looking pretty good. Looking pretty good here. Let's see what else we've got. We've got a lot of other things we could teach. You know what I want to show? Here's something fun. All right, so what I want to do is I want to fix these trees. Have you guys ever done this? I shot this. This is another one of my shots from Yosemite, and this is pretty much straight out of camera. And sometimes you get this color fringing. It's like a chromatic aberration on the areas, you know, when they're going out into the sun. And sometimes you can lose some of these leaves too. Now, there's different ways of doing it. I'm going to show you how to do it using our masking and stuff. Now, you could go down and possibly fix it. And a lot of the time it will if we go under lens correction and remove chromatic aberration. So we turn that on. It's not bad, but the aberrations are really bad, so it's not working in this situation as effectively. See how it fixes it, but it doesn't completely remove it? See that? So look at the color fringing on that area. Watch this. Boom, fixes it, but in the finer areas, it's still showing. So we can't get rid of it completely using this. So what can we do? Hey, Anita. Well, this is what we can do. I've got a great idea. Why don't we grab our gradient tool and paint down with our gradient. That could work. Or why don't we try something else? Let's grab our brush, and I'm just going to paint with the brush. Now, I want to see what we're painting, so we're going to show the mask overlay, and you'll see that it's going to turn that color. And by the way, when you're masking, do yourself a favor. Don't forget to turn the flow and density all the way back. All right, so let's paint over the top of these trees. And make sure we get them all. Looks like I've got the auto mask on. Let's turn that off. And I'm just going to paint just all the way in here. Great. Now, let's zoom in. And in order to zoom in, we just have to click the brush tool. That'll take us out. Zoom in. There we go. All right, so with this brush set, and now we've turned the mask overlay off, let's double click on effect. There we go. That's reset everything. And what else have we got going here? All right, that's looking good. Now, what you want to do is take the saturation down. So I'm pulling the saturation all the way down. Let's make sure I was on the before and after. There we go. Oh, you know what? I see something went weird. Let's click on our brush. There we go. Oh, let's do our history. Looks like I went a little too far. Well, let's just apply that brush again, just real quick. Because I want you guys to see. Oh, there we go. There's our brush selected there. Okay, good, good, good. Our exposure's there. Okay, let's paint this all the way down just once again. I just want to quickly do that. Okay, great. And then if we turn our exposure up, there we go. Now it's working correctly. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to take our saturation and just yank it all the way down. And if you look at this, that's actually going to work for us. Let me zoom into 100%. Notice that we got rid of that. And the reason we were able to do that is because we were working with white underneath there. And so if we look at this before and after, we were able to get rid of that. Now that was a gradient you're seeing in there. Let me just get rid of that quickly. And there we go. There's our brush. Let me just get back before, after. Okay, there we go. All right, so I want to apply that gradient again. We've got rid of the color. So now I want to apply this gradient back so I can get our blue sky. There we go. That's better. Thank you. Before, after. All right, so we've definitely lost some stuff. Let's bring it back. So let's grab our gradient. We're going to pull this down. Let's take our exposure down. Good, good, good. And one of the things you don't have to worry about is these turning red anymore because we desaturated them with the brush. All right, let's take our highlights all the way down because I want to get some more color back in there. And what we want to do now is put our saturation. There we go, saturation to the middle. Okay, so notice what's happening here. As I'm bringing back the sky, we've desaturated that area, right? You won't see it here because it's against white, but once we start to bring this color down, now you can see where those brush strokes are. See, we've got this white halo around there. So it worked, right? Until we added something behind it. So what we're going to do is just simply go back to our brush, and once again we can select the brush, and if you guys remember the masks we used, the range masks, now we can use this range mask to get rid of that white. So we're combining that with the gradient. Watch this. Range mask. Let's do luminance. And where do we want to roll it off? Roll it off the highlights. Look at that. As we roll it off, we can go that way. Or we can go this way. Let me show you Luminance Mask. So we go there, and now we're just hitting our trees. See that? You can see they're red. Whereas here, the brush strokes everywhere. Now they're just on the tree. There's nothing there on the tree. Turn off, show Luminance Mask. Boom. And the reason that's white there is just because I was using a filter. So if we take the gradient, whoa, we can see that's fixed it. Yeah, let me show you. If I take this gradient, it's literally, that white is in the image. See that? So the mask is working perfectly. I just used a polarizer, and it was only working on the left side. So the light's coming from here. But as you can see, now we're able to apply this gradient, and we're able to get that down there. We've removed the color from the trees there, but we're also able to roll off that mask and just hit the trees and not everything else. All right, I want to show you one other thing here, guys. And some of you have already seen it. Actually, I've got a couple of things I want to show you. One of them is super resolution. So a lot of you guys have seen this. I've showed it before, but I just want to quickly just kind of show it here for people that may not be aware. This is a way to quadruple the size of a photograph. inside of Lightroom or Camera Raw. Now, previously this was just in Camera Raw, now it's in Lightroom, and this works on JPEGs, TIFFs, PNGs, RAW files. So here I have a photograph of a pelican. It was one of the early shots I did from my drone. I shot this from the beach on a GoPro. This was actually a scene from video, shot at 1920 by 1080. And in fact, if we look at the specs here, can we see the resolution somewhere? There we go. Dimensions 1920 by 1080. This is in HD format. So I want to make this 4K. And the reason for I want to print it. In fact, this went on a gallery tour with DJI. It was actually picked for the first gallery tour they did. They chose some of the photos. And this was actually exhibited everywhere from Tokyo to Germany, LA, went all over the place. And it was printed. Problem was, it was at 1920 by 1080, so I couldn't print it huge. I did the best. I used, I think, alien skin blow up at the time to make it bigger. So what can we do to make these bigger? And this will work for any photo, whether you want to make it bigger for printing or whether you want to make it larger so you can crop in tighter on a smaller area. There's a lot of use cases for this. Yeah, and there's the drone shadow there. First time I edited it, I took the drone shadow out and everyone was like, what are you doing? The drone shadow makes it. And I was like, good point. All right, so what we're going to do is right click. And when you right click, you see this option called Enhance. And what it's going to do is enable us to turn on super resolution. So this is without Enhance right there. Super resolution is going to make it bigger. But as I hold it down, it would look blocky and pixelated. It uses AI to rebuild those pixels. So this is not just a resizing algorithm. This is literally using artificial intelligence to understand the photo and completely redraw every pixel. So why don't we click on Enhance? And right now, nothing's going to look any different. Let me zoom in. We can see there it is let me click on the little thing so we can see the before and after. So what it does is there's the original. Click on 100. There we are at 100%. And notice it created a second image and popped it inside a stack. So we can see there's the file name. And if I hit the left bracket key, we can see there's a new image and it's added enhanced to the file name. So it created a new image, which is a DNG. And at 100%, we can see how big it is. Once again, let's look at the original. 1920 by 1080. Let me go over to that one. 3840. So now it is 4 times larger in pixels. It's twice as high, twice as wide. And there we go. Just using super resolution. And it works really well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, don't forget, hit that like button. How are we doing for likes right now? 131 likes. That's awesome, guys. That's well done. All right, so let me show you one other thing, which is fun. And this is going to be kind of like a special effect. Light leaks. Now, we spent forever getting rid of light leaks 10 years ago. Now we want to add light leaks. Light leaks are, you know, from film when the film is exposed, like maybe you pulled it out of the camera without completely rolling it, or a whole genre came around lo-fi photos, shot from things like Holgas, cheap plastic cameras, very popular look because, you know, as everything got perfect with digital, people wanted to bring back that analog look. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. We're going to add some light leaks to a photo. So what we're going to do is grab our radial tool, and then with the radial tool, we're just going to drag it down a little bit and create a little radial adjustment. Now, how does this work? Works quite simply. With this, you have the option of choosing the inside or the outside. So let's hit invert. So the rest of the photo is left alone, and just that area where we added that radial is receiving the adjustments. If we invert it, that area is protected. Everything else receives adjustments. So let's flip it around. And I turn the saturation down. Let's turn the saturation up. Let's turn the exposure up. Let's warm it up. And as you can see, we're starting to get something that's beginning to look like a light leak. Now, how do we make this really look like a light leak? Because that's not enough. Well, if we drag out a copy of this, we right click and choose duplicate. Now we can get two of them. We can duplicate again. And we can start to duplicate these and change the shape of them and the position, maybe even the angle. And now we can start to get something that looks like light leaks. It's a lot of fun. And so all I'm doing is just doing that. Let's click away and look at that. Now we're starting to get a light leak effect. So you can do these. You can apply all kinds of different colors. You can change these once you've created them. Let's go back to the radio. Right click this, duplicate it, and let's drag one over to the other side. Put it on the edge, make it a little bigger. Let's change the hue of it. Maybe put it more into the reddish tone. Right click, duplicate. Make it a little thinner. Duplicate, maybe drag it down. And maybe make that one brighter. Click away and look at this. Now we're starting to get these light leaks around the corners of our photographs, and we can do this directly. Thank you, Barry. We can do this directly here inside of Lightroom or Camera Raw. And as you can see, it's a great effect. And the nice thing about it, because it's non-destructive, we can save this as a preset. So let's see what would happen if we choose develop, and I'm going to create a preset and create preset, and we're going to call it light leak. And why don't we, under the settings here, check none. And now we want to just check certain things. Although we didn't change anything else in the photo, so if we had changed different things in the photo, you could go down and just do the radial adjustments. That would be radial filters right there. And that would be all you need to do. But let's just check all, because we didn't change anything else in the photo. So it just saves a little bit of time. If you changed other things, turn off the things that you changed, unless, of course, you wanted to add a color cast. Let me do that right now. Why don't we give the photo a little bit of a color tint? Let's go a little bit more here. In the shadows, let's pull this down a little bit into the blues, just a touch, not a lot. And let me just make sure we're getting the whole image. Yes, we are. Let's pull it up a little into the yellows and the highlights. Okay, so now I'm giving it a little bit of a color adjustment. Let's even go into the greens. There we go. So now we're kind of getting a filmic look. And why don't I roll off the shadows, the blacks? Let's do that as well. So let's roll off the blacks. Another way to do that, by the way, is to use the curves and then just take that curve and just pull that up. So I want to make it look a little bit more like a filmic kind of a look. And let's take our vibrance and pull that down a little bit. There we go. Now it's starting to look a little bit more like a damaged film. So let's click the preset. We're going to add everything. And this one, we called the other one, let's call it old film leaks. All right. Click create. So now we've created a preset. And if we look, our preset should be somewhere down the bottom. Use the presets, and let's look for that. Warm phthalic, where are we? Let's find that preset that we just created. Should be under user presets. You guys see it? Oh, you probably can't see it because my picture is there. Let me go back to the desktop. And I'm just looking for that. Let me just quickly create it again to make sure that it's there. So we're just scrolling to the top of presets. Let me just create the preset. And under the group, I put it under PhotoshopCAFE. That's why. All right, so if we go down to the PhotoshopCAFE group, it should be in there. There we go. So there is our old film leaks right there. Great. So let's go to another photo. And let me just pick any photo. Let's try this one here of Colin. And we go under Develop. And under the presets, we could go down to that one that we did here. Old film leaks. Man, it's not working great on that one. Let's try this one. There we go. Did I forget to do something? I think I did. Let me just undo this a couple of times. Let's go back here and make sure. Okay, let's turn on our presets once again. Let's just save this preset and make sure I turned on that option. I probably didn't. Create preset. Radial filters was unchecked. That's why. Okay, so this time I'm just going to put it under user presets and I'm just going to call it 1. It's going to appear at the top. All right, this time it's going to work, guys. So the library, let's go back to one of these other photos. Let's grab this one. Go to the develop. Let's go all the way to the bottom. User presets 1. There we go. There's our light leaks. And if you don't like what happened in the middle, you know, you can just tweak these and adjust them, but those light leaks are now going to be there. So make sure you turn on radial filters, so when you create that preset, by default, that's not going to be turned on. So that's what went wrong there, guys. All right, so that's nice that we can save these light leaks and we can reuse them over and over again. Now, one of the things I probably would do is what I did in the first place is save this out. Let me just do this again. Let's create a preset. Let's check none. Just use radial. And we're going to call this one light leak. LL for light leak. Create. And this should just give us the light leaks this time. Let's have a look. Under the develop. Let me just collapse all of these. It's a lot of different sets. And by the way, all these sets were added. These pro presets were added into Lightroom recently, so you can grab those as well. Let's go down to LL for light leak. There we go. See what happened there? Now we're just adding those light leaks because when I created that preset, I turned off everything except for radial. And of course, you know, if you want the photo to match, no problem. Just go like that, play around with the exposure, boom. You can, you know, add that very, very quickly and very easy. So these are kind of cool effects that we can add here inside of Lightroom. All right, guys, we've got just a couple of minutes left. And I think what we're going to do here is fix my photo. And here we are, and I have a huge face, so don't worry about the fact that my face is huge. Essentially, what we're doing right now is we are going to do Fix My Photo, and Fix My Photo is where you guys submit your photos, and I'm going to work on your photos. So I have absolutely no idea what we're going to get. We're going to go to the desktop right now. And we're just bringing in some photos that have been added. Now, if you want to include your photos, fixmyphoto.net is where you're going to go to upload them. And make sure that you upload no more than 3 per week per person. And make sure you use your name in the file name, as you can see here, so we know who submitted these beautiful photographs. And that's great. And by the way, if you can, use raw files. So right now we're just going in here. This is the photos that have been uploaded. I can see there's a few of them here. And thanks, guys. Thanks for uploading these. And let's see what we can do with 1 or 2 of these. Nice shot here from Brussels. And this was David Marin. You know, I'm not really going to do a ton to this. One of the things we can do, because this is shot in, you know, a lot of shadow midday, we can open up these shadows a little bit. So all you need to do is just hit the shadows, open those up a little, bring in some of that detail. Now, when you do that, you might want to reduce the contrast and also pull back the exposure. And what we're doing is we're just making up for that, and then take your highlights and recover those a little bit. So what I'm doing is just a very, very basic modification here. I'm not going to do a lot to this. Let's set the white balance, grab the white balance tool, tap on an area that should be white, and that will set that. And we can see, you know, just to bring out the detail before, after, we'll just bring out a little bit more detail. But one of the things I might consider doing here is right click, choose enhance, and let's do a super resolution. And it's going to take a second. You see on top left what's happening. And there we go. Super resolution is ready. Make sure we're on enhanced. That's awesome. See the two there. Just tap regular, enhanced. Great. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crop this down because we were using super resolution. We've got some resolution to burn. And now we could just hone in on this area of the photograph. And maybe put a little vignette in here. I'm going to just brighten this. You know who he looks a little bit like? I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not him. But he looks a little bit like Brian Johnson. Or maybe it's just the hat from AC/DC. And I know on weekends he hides out in Belgium and plays the accordion. His secret is now out. Let's go for a kind of a cool painterly effect on this. Why don't we take a vignette? So we're going to go down to effects. Drop the vignette down. There we go. Move the midpoint in a little bit. Let's bring our emphasis here. And let's go for a sketch kind of. This is something I don't do very often, but I think it would be kind of fun here. So we're going to take the clarity and increase this. Once again, this is something I don't do a ton of. And we're going to take the texture. And let's get this to just look maybe a little bit more painterly. Take those whites. Open up the blacks. Watch that clarity. You don't get too high. Maybe a little touch of dehaze. Pull the vibrance up. Saturation down. There we go. Vibrance up. And there we go. We got a kind of a painterly kind of a look here. Bruce knew it was him on Hell's Bells on the accordion. All right, so there we go. There's before and there's after. We're just kind of doing something fun there, guys. So anyway, I think we're getting near the end of our time. So it's been absolutely wonderful for you guys to join me this week on Live from Lockdown. What I'm going to do is we're actually going to end on time for a change to those of you who need to go, because I know Bruce needs to jet and some of you other guys do. And girls, of course. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. It was wonderful to see you this week at Live from Lockdown. And we're going to be back next week at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And by the way, if you're new, welcome. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and you won't miss any of our streams. Also, guys, if you want to get the notifications in the email, go to PhotoshopCAFE.com. You'll see free tutorials. Click on live streams, and then you'll see a little box where you can sign up. And if you sign up there, you'll get an email. Now, if you sign up on the regular email on Photoshop Cafe, I don't send it out to the whole list. So just make sure you go under the live streams, the box there, the sign up box there, because that's only for the live streams and the only people right now I'm sending that email notification to. So anyway, guys, if you like this, do me a favor, hit that like button. And anyway, guys, it's good to see you all. And thank you for joining us, Jerry, Susan, Tracy, Dana. Good to see you all again. Donald Haynes, Rael, good to see you. Now, I don't know if Mike is in the house, but Mike Freeze has been joining us the last few weeks, and I haven't noticed until I watched the replay. And he's a great video guy, and he's done a lot of video work here, edited a lot of the videos, and worked with Photoshop Cafe for a while. If he's there, say hi. Michael Stein, good to see you. Tom, good to see you. Philip, good to see you. Chris Bacon. So anyway, guys, thanks again, and until next time, I'll see you at the cafe.